Hi guys, so Nigel Farage gave an interview to the Nigel Farage-friendly Sun newspaper where he talked about his life in politics and the rise of his political parties. Now, the full interview is 17 minutes long, so if you want to watch that, I'll leave a link in the description. But here is a chopped-down version of some of the more interesting things. Have a listen.
I'm in politics not because I want to be Prime Minister. I'm in politics because I'd like to use that position to change things.
Okay, but you don't need to be Prime Minister to change things. We've already seen how it works with Farage. Now, I'm skeptical that he wants to be Prime Minister. He says it on occasion, but I think he would prefer, and I could be wrong here, but I think he would prefer to have somebody like Richard Tice in charge, running the country, but him behind the scenes. Why? Because Farage does not like taking responsibility. We've seen it before, when it came to Brexit. Why is Britain facing all these problems? Well, because of the EU. It's somebody else's fault. When it came to getting Brexit done, when it came to the realities of Brexit, did Farage admit mistakes? Did he say, actually, I was wrong to convince people? No. He said, well, we could have had a better Brexit, but it goes to a different school. The reason we're not having a good Brexit is because of the Conservatives. So it's somebody else's fault. So if Prime Minister Nigel Farage was in number 10, do you think he would take responsibility for the failures of government? No, it would have to be somebody else's fault. And it's easier if he's not in that position, but behind the scenes. But once again, I could be completely wrong here.
25% of the country hate me? Well, I hope so. I don't care.
Yes, he doesn't. He projects this image of, I don't care, I'm a tough guy, I don't need to appeal to more than my base. But in reality, he's doing exactly that. He's testing the waters with more mainstream policies when it came to the two-child benefit cap. Now, it may be exploding in his face, but I think he's testing the water to see, not that he actually believes in these things, but he's trying to appeal to people beyond the far right. Because if he truly wants power, he has to present himself as a professional, he has to present Reform UK as competent, but he also has to appeal to people beyond the far right. And just talking about immigration is not going to achieve that.
So we dealt with the Conservatives, we're coming for Labour.
Yeah, and I think so. But this part I think is true. He has pretty much replaced the Conservatives. Conservatives are in potential terminal decline now, and Kemi Badenoch is not steering the ship in the right direction. So Farage has basically replaced the Conservatives as the official opposition. And now he's coming for the Labour Party. And will he be able to win over Labour voters? Well, perhaps in the red wall. But also if he starts to push policies that are believed to be on Labour's turf, and people believe that Reform would do a better job, then yes, he could win over Labour voters.
It is now becoming clearer by the week that the Prime Minister believes in nothing.
And this is going to be something that the Labour government need to change. Farage is correct here. People believe that Keir Starmer believes in nothing. If you ask people on the street, what does Keir Starmer believe in? They don't have an answer. With Farage, it's quite clear. So Labour need to come up with a vision. They need to fix everything, but they also need to come up with a vision. If they don't, then people are going to vote for this guy.
I think the narrative out there that this is broken Britain, that nothing works, that frankly they're both as bad as each other, this is now more deep set than it's ever been. So I have this thing.
Now, it's difficult to tell whether this is actually what people believe or what the media has convinced people to believe. A lot of people believe this, yes, that the Labour Party is no different to the Conservatives. And in some ways, that's true. But Farage doesn't need to convince everyone. He just needs to convince enough people. And of course, Labour are not helping themselves if they're going down the road of austerity. They're not helping themselves if they're punishing the most vulnerable in society, because that's what you associate with the Conservatives. So there's still time for Labour to turn that ship around. If they don't, they're going to reinforce the narrative that they're the same as the Tories.
What I call the supermarket test. That you go to the supermarket occasionally and you push your trolley around and you buy the essentials, you know, tonics, limes, that sort of thing. And as you're going around, this country's in a perilous state. Nothing works. we're getting poorer, GDP per capita falling quite consistently.
Okay, I just want to respond to two things here. First, who he's talking about the supermarket test. Unfortunately, it was edited out. But what he was talking about here is when you meet people in the street or meet people in the supermarket, in the past, they would agree with Farage, but look around, is anyone listening? Now they're much more open about their anti-immigration beliefs, and they're more frank with Farage, which is probably true. Now, he also says here, the economy is collapsing. The economy is in the doldrums. Yes, because of Brexit. But will Farage admit that? Of course not. Or if he does, well, it's not my fault, it's the Tories. So there's been a lack of investment from the Conservatives over the last number of years when they were in power. And your damn Brexit has taken a massive cudgel to GDP and to the economy in general. But will Farage admit that? Of course not.
So let's get into it then. So first 100 days, you walk through the front door of number 10.
Yeah.
What's the plan?
So you have to leave the ECHR. You have to be prepared to look at the UN Refugee Convention, but to redefine it exactly three quarters of a century later. Not having the European Convention on Human Rights written into British law, which distorts everything. And number two, having a judiciary that is neutral. I'm not sure we have one of those at the moment.
Really?
No, I'm not sure. I want to remove, Article 8, the right to a family life. Oh, Judge, I've got a cat. All right, you can stay. I mean, the whole thing's ridiculous.
Okay, there's a few things to mention here. This is about, like Brexit, about stripping away protections for British people. Now, of course, it will be sold as immigrants are abusing the system. We need to dump the entire system, throw the baby out with the bathwater. Now, is there abuse within the system? Of course there is, but you have to deal with it on a case-by-case basis. You don't throw the whole thing out. Once again, I keep saying this is about stripping away protections for British people. This is why Farage and Robert Jenrick and others on the far right want to leave the European Convention on Human Rights. It's not because they care about immigrants. It's about they want to strip those protections away from British people. And who benefits from that? Corrupt business owners. Because the European Convention on Human Rights isn't just about immigration or about human rights. It also protects workers. It protects freedom of expression. And if these things are taken away, then workers will not be protected and people will not be able to stand up to their governments. Farage, once again, with Brexit, was about stripping away protections for consumers, for the environment, for workers. Does he care about ordinary people? Of course not. He cares about a small section of people, the richest.
We saw incitement at Glastonbury. Predictable incitement. And yet Lucy Connolly, from what I could see, sent one wrong, bad, intemperate tweet. One.
No, it was not one. She had a track record of attempting to incite violence. She had a track record of racist tweets. So it was not just one. But even if it were just one, she pleaded guilty to it. See, the problem with Reform UK and people on the right are they're trying to turn Lucy Connolly into some sort of Nelson Mandela figure. But she's, first of all, not. But she also pleaded guilty. Not guilty. She didn't stand up in court and say, I am not guilty. No, she pleaded guilty in order to get a lesser sentence. Now, that made logical sense. If you did this and you wanted a lesser sentence, then you plead guilty. But she's not some sort of hero figure, and you should not be presenting her as that. And it's also ironic that Farage is talking about others inciting violence. Remember the Farage riots?
One. No previous history of any of this. Our mate Bob at Glastonbury have been saying all sorts of awful things for years.
Yeah.
So is it two-tier? Yeah, it's really embedded, actually.
Okay, then Bob Villan should face his day in court. Does Nigel Farage believe that he should face a judge? Yes, I think he should, if he has done something wrong. What they're trying to do is, once again, there's two-tier policing or there's two-tier justice. Let's be frank about this, if you're a white person, you're going to end up in jail. If you're not, you're not. That's what they're trying to sell. They're not so frank about it, but that's what they're trying to sell. Ordinary British people are going to suffer the consequences, but foreigners or immigrants or whoever, they're not going to. And it's a powerful narrative. It's built on nothing, but it's a powerful narrative. So I just want to come back to the main point here, of course, of Prime Minister Nigel Farage. He's not somebody who would take responsibility for his actions. So if he did eventually become Prime Minister, it would be a disaster, but it would be somebody else's fault. Perhaps the civil service, like the Conservatives were blaming, perhaps immigrants, the old favourite, perhaps the poor, the NHS isn't working, we need to throw it out, we replace it with something else. It would be always somebody else's fault. And Farage, as Prime Minister, would never take responsibility, because it's not in his DNA. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think, and I'll see you in the next video.